I'm here with Ricardo Perez. Ricardo, beyond being a long-term friend, is Professor Istituto Empresa, and Istituto Empresa hosted yesterday here in Madrid on the top of the new EI University Tower, the Madrid Scaleup Summit. We had a lot of corporates for all afternoon, from Iberdrola to Repsol, to Ferrovial, to ACCIONA, to SNAM, and many, many others. And that's been a very, very interesting discussion. Ricardo, what has been your main takeaways out of all this discussion about open innovation?
So super interesting discussion yesterday. Very, lots of insights. I think the biggest insight is there is a process to this. The process to this has a few stepping stones that you need to understand to be successful. So we, on the spot, we came up with this model that highlights some of the critical things that they shared. And there are 3 positive and 2 negative things that you need to remember. So the first, and some of them started with different versions of that, different verbalization of that, it was relevance. So how to build the relevance for different parts. So build the relevance for the strategy department, build the relevance for the business, build the relevance for the units. If you are not able to build the relevance, nothing happens. It's an internal job. Of course, we assume you need to build relevance outside, but that comes with the I can help you grow. The challenge was internal. This relevance leads you to a lot of the barriers that are there. We call them rejection. So the rejection of the company research and development, the rejection of the people that have been around for a while, the winners and the losers. So you will face this rejection actually from a very clear reason. If you are doing really open innovation for H2 and H3, it takes time. So rejection is a critical issue. When you are building relevance, you want to build something else because there is always a sort of a crisis in maturity. When this crisis comes, and you mentioned it several times also, they will ask you for 2 things. They will ask you for KPIs, and they will ask you for, can you do this again? So after the first stage, when you are mostly a PR instrument, you need to build replicability. So you work a lot in processes, in operationalizing, in execution. It's a job of making this happen again and again and again. And you are reinforcing relevance when you do this well. You face at this stage also a challenge. So there is the challenge of rejection and there is the challenge of resilience. So can you go through this process of learning how to make it happen again and again? Super tough because the business changes. And again, if you are good enough, what you do is you build the results part. How you measure it. And the measurement is at the beginning very related to communication stuff. But as you mature and you go to this middle-age crisis of the relevance of the Open Innovation Department, you go to the money. And after you know how to measure some money, you go and get to the fine-tuning of what else can I measure? What is the impact in the culture of the company? What is the impact in the way we do things? What is the impact in our branding? So these 5 R's will guide you through the process of building something that will last more than the average 2 or 3 years that these programs last, and will help you navigate the internal forces and the external forces.
Yes, because at the end, the open innovation play is a long-term play. but is split in multiple periods. And with these periods probably have also different referees. And you need to navigate through them because there might be a reorganization, might be a change of governance, might be also change of external condition that might probably force the company to cut some budget. And what we've seen yesterday, talking with many of the people that actually are leading innovation effort in large corporation, is that their ability to navigate through them, and also I remember what Díaz Pilas said, sometimes the ability to understand when you need to downplay, to pass through certain complicated times, I think is super important. So again, at the end is a very, very high political play that has to be played, and I believe the model that you designed, the one of the 5R, so talking about relevance, rejection, resilience, return, and repeatability. I think this is probably 5 important keywords, and might explain all the different challenges that an open innovation executive should play with and the ability to overcome.
You see in the comments, the ones that have long lived, like Diego and other people that were in that room, were able to play this game in a way that allowed them to gain relevance and more and more and more, but always keeping in mind the other 4 R's that are part of their life. So again, relevance is the key issue, but taking into account the other ones will help you survive.
Yes, perfect. I think we have at least a way of approaching such a very, very complicated idiosyncratic play that is called open innovation. We are seeing companies succeeding, then downplaying, downgrading, re-emerging. So I think that means that probably, Ricardo, there are still best practice that we need to follow to fast track probably some effort, but the other way we need to continue to evolve and finding their proper tools to navigate through the different ages.
True. And you see that in the last few years, we have seen the emergence and outplay of some fashionable things to do. And this, as we were discussing before, this goes to 2 directions. First direction is, this is still very tough. It's really tough to navigate a crisis of companies, evolution of needs, and so on and so forth. Second, every time there is a downplay, it's a great opportunity to relearn the rules of the game for the next stage. And I think this is not stopping in the next few years. I mean, we'll see ups and downs and new ways of doing this as we become more expert. It also signals that this is still not a common management practice. This is still something we are learning. It's not like let's make supply chain more efficient. There is an ABC that you can learn. This is still, the jury's out. Still to be seen what are the best things that will be useful for the next stage. We have the first layer, but we're still building the next ones. It's a super, super interesting journey.
Yes, and at the end, what is really at play is the survival of the company. Again, as we used to say, mind the bridge is evolve or be extinct. At the end, if you're able to navigate it through and continue to keeping the innovation engine up and running, also in under different adverse circumstances, the company will survive. At a certain point, the external forces or the internal forces will force you to stop and kill the engine. Probably at the same time, also the overall broader machine will start probably go into the direction that we don't want to foresee. And so I think that's it. Or this is the only play. I think, as one of my friends was used to say, is yes, it's complicated, it's long term, it's difficult to measure, but what's the option?
I think with all the things that are happening, I like the metaphor of the engine, but also the factory. So you want to make a factory that is also part of a workshop. So the workshop is the artisan play, and then you have the factory. So the artisan play is all that you were mentioning about the strategy, the politics, the selecting, the working with the company, and then you want to have the factory. Just super close. When it goes through the funnel, when we enter the factory, we know there is something out. So it's super, super interesting how companies should be struggling to raise the game in both sides. The workshop, all the politics, all the design, and then the factory, all the execution and the making it happen when you know what to do.
With a big caveat that I believe that since the external conditions are continually evolving, is what, based on our experience, there are some approaches that might be factorized, industrialized, and I believe AI will help a lot in this direction. Sure. I imagine technology scouting, startup scouting, I think that is already a productization of this kind of job. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, finding replicability in a very, very idiosyncratic area, I'm thinking about venture building, that is so damn complicated and so very specific. That is something that has been very super, super challenging. And what we have seen on the market, that some corporates have been successful with one, but are not being able to replicate it again. Because one thing is to industrialize some IP coming from R&D, another thing is to industrialize an idea coming from an employee, or an idea coming from an external resource. And sometimes also the topic, despite the source might be the same, the topic are so different, and the level of knowledge, expertise, the potential way of scaling and monetization are so different that at the end you are doing things that are sort of more sartorial than actually industrial.
Yes. And that's why, I mean, if you take these two models together, what you can place into the factory is the stuff that talks a little bit about replicability and how you measure. Think of the levers on that's the return, the KPIs. And then the rest goes to the workshop, which is super, super interesting. And it's a kind of a testament of the complexity, the evolution, the ups and downs, and the fine tuning that many companies are doing. You were presenting the data on the accelerators and the venture builders and how it goes up and down. And so super interesting, because we are not yet there when we can think about that factory of all the process, which is super.
We are not there, but we need to get there, because again, one thing that we know about large corporations, that they like things that might be scalable and replicable, because that is the only things that make economic impact at large. All the other things, the artisanal attempt, are heroic, are super to be appreciated, but at the end are not particularly rewarding from the corporate top perspective. So there should be of urge to replicability, urge to scalability, but we understand that still we are in the making of the models, and the best practice, I believe that might be something that we need to dig more and more and more.
Super interesting. There will be a moment in which we'll get there. The journey will be super interesting, because there will be so many of these companies that you mentioned before that they don't change, they die, and they are late, or they cannot gather the political support, or they cannot gather the strategic closeness. So time to wake up and do stuff, or else be part of the cases we use in business schools to tell the story of the failures. I love cases of success, but cases of failures are also awesome. And I think we'll see a high population of possible cases in the next year.
Yes, I think that is the common effort that we will start with Istituto Empresa, to start to build up cases of what it worked and what it didn't, in order to be shared with others and make it probably a common knowledge for fast track the process for others to follow.
Let's hope we can kind of build the interesting stories that kind of are guidance to some of the do's and don'ts, at least the basics, to help people think better. Because at the end of the day, our job is to think better so others can do better. So let's help people think better on these terms, so they can help their companies do better.
Yes, also because, again, if you help others to do better, we get an immediate positive outcome, that we live in a better society with better companies, more performing companies. That's actually the place that we like to be. I'm not particularly excited to companies striving and company really fatiguing to get to the end of the year. So let's hope for the best, and let's continue the work for making open innovation a more sound practice.
Yeah, super fun, right? Thank you, Alberto.
Thank you.